Hi, I'm Hussain Almossawi. In this video, I'll be walking you through how I texture using Adobe Substance 3D Painter on one of my footwear designs. I'll show you how I experiment with materials, texture maps, blending tools, masks, and step by step until I reach the final result. I hope you enjoy. Let's dive right into it. This is a shoe that I designed a while back, and the intent behind it was to create something inspired by performance sports cars. My vision for it included materials like leather, knit, carbon fiber, and plastic. And there's no better tool to bring some surfaces to life other than Adobe Substance 3D Painter. So let's dive in and get started. Going to the materials library and search for leather. And I will just drag and drop it on top of my materials. In the UV section, I can just easily scale my material. And one thing I always like to do when adding new materials, press Shift and the middle mouse button, and if you drag left and right, it will show you how the material reacts to light. So that's really helpful to start to fine-tune the properties of each material. So let's get into the properties of the leather material, and we'll set a black color, and let's adjust some of the roughness. Again, I'll check how the light reacts to the different properties. So let's search for a fabric material now, and just drag and drop and adjust the scale. And at this point, I just want to see what looks right and good on my model. And if you want to preserve the same scale of the UV you adjusted, just go on any material and click rather than dragging and dropping. And we'll just try a few different materials. Maybe a technical fabric, which is nice. So yeah, I think this is closer to what I'm looking for. Let's adjust the colors. I'm going with something that is more black and gray, and I will check how the light is reacting to it, and you can see a clear difference between that and the leather. Now I'll look for a different kind of fabric that I've used in the past. So if you press Alt and then press on the little eye next to the layer name, that will hide all the layers except the layer that you're on. So let's go ahead and isolate it and adjust the UV. Again, I'll be scaling it and adjusting the color to maybe a dark gray. And we'll play with the roughness some more so that it doesn't look too shiny. And I think that looks good. Drag and drop. Now let's work on another leather piece. So one thing that I like to do is, just to make things faster, is I would just drag and drop any material on the part that I want to work on, and that just takes me quicker to that layer. So I would just drag and drop and then delete it, and I would copy the layer with the material on it, and then I would take it to the other element and paste layer as instance. This way I get the same exact material with the properties that I modified and the UVs that I adjusted. And if I do any changes to this, it's going to affect every other element that has the same material instance to it. So now let's look for a plastic material, maybe smoked plastic. All right, we'll adjust the color to a gray color. And now we'll do the exact same thing, adjust the roughness, and then copy this layer. And then we want to go to those small lines on top of it and paste layer. All right, so this way it just makes things faster. And now I have my plastic in place. And next, let's work on the big side wall. I think I'll go with the same material, but in this case, we'll choose a darker shade, something closer to black. And a lot of this is really trial and error and experimenting. So you'll get to see what colors you like as you're building your model. All right, so now I'll go and look for a knit material. There are many options. I'm looking at this lining inside of the heel. So the same process. Maybe we'll look at a different one. This one has a nicer detail. So I'll go with this one. And I will adjust the color to an orange maybe. It goes nice with black. And I think that's good. So that's going to be my colorway or the theme for the shoe with these three colors. There's going to be the blacks, the grays, and the orange, which will make some parts really stand out. All right, use this fabric we used earlier. And we'll apply it to the pull tabs. Again, very, very small details. We'll adjust the color on this one. So now as you see, the process is becoming very repetitive at this point. So we're not going to use many different materials. This is all of the same materials, but it's maybe playing more with the UVs and playing with how we distribute these few materials that we have. All right. Now for these triangles, I will be using a jeans fabric because I want those lines on it, and we'll adjust it. And obviously the color isn't something nice. We'll adjust the roughness, and we will go with something like a dark gray and black. So since this triangle is on a different layer, I want to copy the materials that I just created and copy paste them here as instance, and that will give me the exact same effect. Alright, so now let's add a colored fabric to the laces, and as you can see, and again the UVs are really huge, so let's just go really small on this so it could look realistic. We'll adjust the colors to a nice dark gray, maybe something closer to black, and I think that looks good. And now for the wires that are connecting the laces to the eyelets, I will try adding a material that has more of a chrome finish to it. And I feel like everything is starting to look more consistent color-wise. And there's a color story behind the shoe now. So we'll copy the same exact material and paste it as instance for the small eyelets, the triangles. And that seems to look good. Alright, so moving on to this white piece on the side. Let's look for a vinyl material. Drag and drop. Let's change the color from orange to white. And let's adjust the UV scale to adjust the direction of the patterns on the material. And then let's go to the material texture maps and disable the roughness and the height map to make it look nice and smooth. Let's go into the texture settings, and under channels, let's add an emissive channel. And as you can see, we have an emissive tab added to the material, and we'll enable that. So what this does now is it's going to add light to the material. So when you render it, it's going to have a very nice glow to it. Alright, so let's move to these small pods on the bottom. I want to have a nice glass material here, something that is a bit opaque and see-through. And the reason for that is that those small lines that are inside of it will also light up, and it's going to look nice behind the glass. So let's do the same thing we did for the side piece. We'll add this vinyl, remove the height, and let's add an emissive channel to it, and we'll keep the color orange here. So that's gonna look nice. Alright, moving on. Let's add a carbon fiber material to the heel counter. And I'll just drag and drop. I don't want something too shiny, so I can adjust that. And I'll just look at how these... And I'm going to remove the roughness map. I think the texture is very nice, so I want to keep it. But I want to blend another material on top of it. I'll add a smoked plastic. And I'll also adjust the color. And I'll adjust maybe the roughness, but I think that looks good. That looks nice. Alright, so we're going to do the same exact process for the sole. Add the vinyl material. We're going to add an emissive channel to it. And we're going to scale it down. Okay, this time I'm going to keep the height map. I think those small details look really nice. It's going to be a very nice detail to have on the sole. Alright, so next up we're going to go to the heel piece. And I like the details in this paint roll material. It has a very nice detail to it. And we're going to mix a few different materials on this heel piece. So I like this paint grunge effect that it has. Let's adjust the color to something that is dark gray. And then let's look at plastic materials. So you don't want to add a lot of different materials. Again, we want to keep some consistency. Even when we're blending materials, we'll try to keep as much as we can as the same materials that we're using, just for the sake of consistency. Alright, so we'll add the smoked plastic material. I'll go with a dark black color. We'll remove the normal map. And then we're also going to add on top of it a spotted concrete map. All right, and again, remove the normal map so we can get rid of any of those bumps that it brings in. All right, so for the spotted concrete, let's set the blending mode to multiply. This is just like Photoshop. And I will copy paste it maybe a few times, just so I can make it look more visible. And let's also add this raw gray concrete material on top. We'll set the blending mode to screen, and we'll just bring it down to 2%. So this is going to be a very, very subtle detail. And let's just keep the color of that. So what this does is that when light reacts with the material, you get to see these very nice dots and details kind of hidden inside of the material, which is a cool effect to have. It's almost like a surprise element. All right, so finally, let's go to the outsole, and we will be adding the same vinyl material. And again, we'll be keeping those small details on it on the height map. Let's remove the color just so we can see those details properly. And I will increase the intensity of the height map. And it's just going to look like a whole different kind of geometry using displacement maps. We'll put the color back on and give it a nice black color. And maybe we'll make it just a bit rougher so it looks like real rubber. And it looks really nice and reacts very well to light. Alright, so next up we're going to work on the small pods that are on the bottom of the shoe. So let's add a glossy vinyl material to this. And we'll keep it emissive just like we did before, just so that light can come out of it. And with that, we've finished the materials for our shoe. Alright, so now we've finished all the materials on the shoe, and I think it's looking pretty nice. Again, we can check how the light reacts to everything, and everything is flowing nicely together. So now that we have all the colors and materials in place, what I want to do is add another layer of details to the shoe, like the logos, branding, and maybe some text on the shoe. So let's go to the top part of the shoe, where we'll have a logo, and I will add a fill layer with the same orange color on top. And go to add bitmap mask. And this will allow me to use any image that I imported as a mask. So in this case, I'm using a logo that I created, just the letter M. And the fill layer now only colors the shape of the mask that I have. I can scale it down, and then in the properties under UV wrap, change repeat to none. This will just make it a singular logo. And adjust it, and I think this looks good. And if we go to the fill properties, at the very end there's a height map, which by default is set to 0. The nice thing is if you take it all the way to 1 or -1, you can give your logo a nice emboss or deboss effect. So just a very subtle detail. And if we duplicate that layer, it's just going to be twice as deep. Alright, so now I'm going to copy my fill layer. And I will go to the back of the shoe where I have the pull tabs. And again, I will adjust the M so it fits nicely on the back, much smaller scale. And it has the same exact deboss effect and the same color. And now on the heel of the shoe, my idea was to have it say ignition activated. As I mentioned before, this shoe was inspired by sports cars, so I would like to add that level of detail and storytelling in the shoe design. So let's go to the heel, and again I will paste my fill layer that I had, and I will go on my mask, and if I click on my mask properties, I can just go and change the logo with another image that I imported, in this case ignition, and I will place it on the left side of the heel. And then I will copy paste it and import another one which is activated. Again, I will adjust it so it works on the other side. And I think it would be cool if ignition activated would also light up. So we'll do the same as what we did before. And we'll just turn it on and make it a brighter orange color. So this will make it really glow. Alright, so now the final detail that I would like to add is on the outsole. I'm going to go from a bottom view, so I'll just add a regular layer this time. And in my stencils, I will look for this hexagon pattern that I had created. And I will just adjust the bottom view so that the hexagons would fill that whole part up. I just want to make sure that it's within that boundary. And then I would just start to paint over it. And then I will remove the stencil just so I can see what the shoe looks like. And then I will set the blending mode to overlay and maybe reduce the opacity to 50%. And now this is a very subtle detail, but it adds another layer of detail to the bottom of the shoe, just like we added the other details. And just like that, the shoe is fully textured and all the materials are in place. Once it's all set, you can export your maps and bring them into your favorite 3D program and render it in extremely high detail. For this project, I finished the post-production in Adobe Photoshop. And here's the final result. And that wraps up this breakdown. I hope it gave you a clear look into how I use Adobe Substance 3D Painter to iterate, design, and build concepts. If you enjoyed this and want to see more tutorials, make sure you follow Adobe Substance 3D and subscribe to their channels. Enjoy and have fun designing.